Okay,
Do we have anybody on the phone?
so we do not yet. I know Julie's gonna be providing the visuals in the room.
I'm trying to join on Zoom here. Oh, this is me. I
Ah.
know.
We spend the first 10 minutes of every council meeting.
Wow,
trying to
okay,
figure
this is
this
my
out.
first one doing this.
It's a joy.
Actually, Connie, I found my pen. I
Oh,
don't want to risk you walking out and forgetting this behind.
What is this? Is
it's
it a
my bumblebee
Oh,
pen.
it's all right, I'll bring it over. I was gonna just toss it to you.
Okay, actually share my screen and do that. This will stop other screen sharing.
I'm gonna use it. It's
Yeah, you
honor
should.
of the
Yeah.
So whatever you're gonna-
To hell with the Vic. I'm dealing with the bumblebee.
They've been going. The fire call.
Yeah, what's that for? There's a lot of truck that went down.
Really?
Yeah,
It's
up
been
where-
going for
up
like
where my
10, 15
street.
minutes.
Yeah.
Just now?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Smelled
What about your house?
They were in a hurry.
it.
That could just be a brush fire.
Yeah, it's called from.
It's been so dry.
I didn't see it's really all, I know there's
Are
stuff
we-
coming from Alberta.
Yeah, I was looking
live?
at the-
Where
Hey,
the
come on.
wind was
Just
coming
in
from,
time.
and yesterday was like very high.
So we are
So it must be-
broadcasting and ready to.
All right.
start with the-
Is there anyone,
We have nobody remote at the time. There's nobody there right now.
all right, I think Sam will be
Okay,
joining us in a bit. Yeah, she's in person.
we'll look for Sam and Moon.
Yeah, but we have that, so.
All right, well, hello, everybody. Second in-person meeting, very exciting. I think what we'll do, well, why don't we just go through it? It doesn't sound like there's anyone online,
No,
so
it's
public
still present
comments so
tonight.
far anyway, we can just cross that off. And does anyone have any questions, comments about the minutes that were sent out for last meeting? Or can we put those up?
Very thorough.
They are
Very
very thorough,
Hey.
and they're gonna be very helpful. I'm gonna go back and take a look at what we've done. All right, so the big thing today is to welcome Kristen here, she's assistant planner in Newbury. Right? We have, of course, been, ever since I've joined and way before, really talking about how to collaborate more with Newbury, and so it's wonderful to have you here. I don't know if you know everyone in the room, so I'm wondering if we can go around and then maybe, if you don't mind, you can introduce yourself.
That'd be great. Do you want me to start or everybody else start?
I can start. So Molly at Rowe, City of Newburyport, Energy Recycling.
Sarah Tappan, I'm a volunteer and note taker.
And Storm Surge.
And
And part of Storm Surge.
There's so much more. than
Yeah,
just a
I know.
volunteer
I know,
and
no
note taker.
time.
Gosh, like grant writer.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
She really keeps us all in fit, let's be honest.
You know me, Jane.
Connie Preston, City Councilor.
Any board director planning?
Julie Dodson, Conservation.
You know each other. Joe Teixeira, Concom. Brent LaFave, volunteer.
And vice chair.
Barry Connell, troublemaker.
Oh, I like it.
It's true. Yeah, it is.
Why I moved
Wear
away
the
from
hat.
Yeah.
Jane, can I ask an introductory question?
Of course.
I was actually curious if maybe you could give some background, because I don't know. I was actually interested in the context of how your position got created with a focus and understanding that is important in Newbury for resiliency, I guess.
Why don't
Oh, sorry,
we pause that and let her introduce herself?
sorry.
Maybe she can work that into her intro.
And then, yeah, I think we should address all that.
Yeah,
All
that's
those
great.
questions and more.
So hi, everybody. Those of you I know and don't know, nice to meet you. I started as assistant planner in late January, so just this year, a few months into it. They're primarily Martha Taylor has been director of planning. I'm sure most of you know her. So there's been sort of an administrative position for the town, but this was sort of the first time I think that there's been a full-time person who has a planning background. So it is, I would say, at least from my perspective, it's increasing the capacity of Newbury to do more planning My background most immediately was working for the trustees of reservation. I was only there about a year. I was coastal project manager, which for the trustees was across the state. So I worked on the islands and Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, as well as up in this region, based out of Crane. So working with the ecology and coast team on resiliency projects. So that was most immediate. But prior to that, I was town planner in Ipswich. And it was, I guess, during that time when I was involved in the MVPs and, you know, was a part of some of these meetings. I live in Newbury, formerly served on the Newbury Planning Board. So that was kind of my first getting to know Martha and getting to know the town from that planning perspective. But my background is environmental and resiliency. So that's sort of how I've come into community planning. So it is my interest. That said, my position is broad. So I'm processing site plan reviews and A&Rs and writing minutes that haven't been written for the last 3 years.
So we're actually,
Pretty fun. So I relate, watching YouTube videos and transcribing. So all of that is sort of in my purview. So, you know, there's a lot in planning that is just takes up your time, but I'm certainly, you know, at this point anyway, I'm the representative in Newbury for the Great Marsh, 8 Towns and Great Marsh Committee. Worked with John O'Connell on the Stormwater Committee and his interest in this committee, and he felt as though it was time to sort of pass that position back. So I have at this point been sort of officially appointed to be the rep from Newbury to work with you all. I don't, you know, looking forward to talking more about what that means and what that looks like. You know, as I said, I think my familiarity with Newburyport comes from the Great Marsh Coastal Adaptation Plan, which I was a part of that whole effort, that multi-year planning effort, which is how I remember some of you. So yeah, Newburyport's been doing awesome work as a local. I have sort of watched where that Great Marsh plan has gone in terms of strategies and priorities. And, you know, I think Newbury is interested in doing more. I think there's support for doing more, and obviously there are opportunities to collaborate that you all know very well. So certainly the FLAP grant is something I wasn't a part of when that came together, but that's, you know, that's an immediate project that I think we'll be working on together, but I'm definitely just interested to hear what else the thoughts are and how we can partner and other, I'm definitely very interested in, you know, all partners partnering together, whether it's Storm Surge and I live on the campus of Governors Academy.
Do
They
you?
have their
Goodness.
own, you
Oh,
know,
yeah, yeah,
there's
new-
some resiliency
Yes,
stuff
that's-
going on there. So,
Yeah, they have that new facility.
yep.
We would all look to them, see.
Yeah, well, it's not done yet, but
Okay, yeah, no, we're definitely.
they're definitely interested in
Yeah.
just having it be a part of the community and having it be a meeting place and all that. So I'll stop. Happy to answer any more direct questions.
no, it feels like we're benefiting in part from your background specifically, as opposed to like, you know, you're filling a, you know, more broad planner's position role, right? But we're actually benefiting both communities, I would say, right? From the fact that you have some focus in this area, right?
Right.
Sounds like that's, yeah. Thank you. That's great.
It's definitely my background and interest, but that said, you know, we're doing our housing production plan, we're doing, you know, all that good stuff. So yeah, it's a great opportunity. I'm really excited to be working for the town and sort of helping bring my perspective to some of the conversations. So yeah. Yeah. So
Everyone.
Thank you.
yeah,
Um,
thank you.
what I thought of doing was go through our regular updates and then switch back to Newbury just to ease you into the process. So we're not
Yeah,
But if
great.
you want, in terms of timing, Christina, if you want to expand the conversation now, or do you have a preference?
I'm happy to listen a little and I'll chime in and yeah, that
Alright,
sounds good.
All right, and if we lose track of time, I'll make sure to get back to
Yeah,
it.
I need to leave around 4:20, so just in case I sneak out before you're quite finished. Thanks.
Alrighty, committee updates then. Sarah?
Okay, so let me make one correction in the agenda, which is the storm surge talk next week is a week from tonight. It's the 24th, not the
Oops, sorry.
25th. It was corrected, so it's okay. I know John Eric signed up, and I don't think I talked too much about what Laura's going to talk about, and others might be interested. So she's from the Center for Coastal Studies in Provincetown. She's run a program that hires off season fishing vessels and crews to go out and pull debris out of the waters down there. She's got a $2.7 million grant to expand that program up the North Shore and into southern New Hampshire and Maine. So she's going to talk about the program and she's going to talk about that grant and expanding it into our area. So I think it will be an interesting talk. What she does with the debris is also interesting because she has this wide network of artists, some of them really famous artists that use the ropes and the fishing traps and other stuff that they pull out of the water and they upcycle it either into braided rugs or art installations so she's got some pretty cool slides and stuff on that stuff. So that I
Right,
think,
whale protection.
What?
Is that part of the
yeah,
right
it's
whale
part,
protection?
well, yeah, they do it during the
Okay.
season when they're not allowed to go out. So
Yeah.
it's not directly, but it helps the fishing community during that period. So her whole goal is just building community between the environmentalist camp and the fishing camp and groups that might not necessarily get along. And she does a great job with it. So, and then in June on the 14th, Russ Hoppings from the trustees is going to give a talk on the Great Marsh Restoration. So I think that one will also be popular. So what they're doing at Old Town Marsh and other areas. So
And that's June what?
14th, also a Wednesday night,
I'm in where?
7 o'clock at the senior center. Both of those are.
Are they hybrid or just in person?
Well, they're not Zoom. They are broadcast by NCM Hub Live and they record them, so they'll be available after the fact. But I just gave up on the Zoom because it added one more layer of complexity and it didn't work that well. So
That's
just
fine.
went along with it.
Thank you. Brett, did you have a chance to take a look at any on the story map page, specifically the projects, the visitation, any clicks?
Oh, yeah, I have the report right in front of me.
Oh, good.
I'd share it if I could, but not worth it. It's not worth looking at, basically. You know, we had one little spike there mid to late April, and it's basically fallen off. Fallen off the map. Apparently, there's nothing, the average engagement time is 2 minutes and 19 seconds.
That's not bad.
Yeah, but the visitors have gone away, so it's, there's nothing to keep people from coming back. It's not updated enough. You know, I mean,
We just need something controversial to.
yeah, right.
There, I don't think people.
turning to
Fox News.
Pickleball.
Yeah,
Pickleball.
Pickleball. Put some pickleball in there, it'll be all over it.
Or Waterfront West or something.
No, that's true.
So anyway, so
due
it's not good. So
All right, well, maybe we
Don't get
captured,
discouraged.
but maybe we captured everyone
For the
when those first press
round.
releases came out. And so once we
That's
do an
right.
update,
That's what
we'll
brought
send
it
that
down.
out. It'll build on it.
yeah, and there was
Itself,
another, you know, update. I think it was mentioned again in the notes this month. but,
Yeah.
You know, nobody's. I mean, we're only talking 63 users. We're not talking a whole lot of people. So
Right.
there's not enough compelling reason for people to go there. I mean, I have to admit, I thought that the projects, you know, would keep people coming back, looking to see how they're done, but maybe it's not clear enough what's there, what's going on.
How about an article in the paper?
And I think we've had some mentions. and
We can
stuff.
do it again. Papers, you read the paper lately? Like one page long. They're always looking for articles.
But that actually reminds me of something, and I think it's the other, Julia, can you switch over to the CIP? Sarah put together, what we perceive as the resiliency projects in the CIP. And so a lot of them are already on that projects database, but some of them aren't. So this one is, so we can flip through.
Okay.
And just, I'm curious to know what folks think in terms of including,
This one is.
yep, that one's there.
Andy, did you see email from me
I would-
asking you to review?
I'm
the-
sorry, did you send me something new? And I'm sorry, did I not? I'll
Yeah,
fall back.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Harbor Master. Do you think the Harbor Master solar panel should be on our project's website as a resiliency
I mean, it
project?
fits under the broader umbrella. It's more like an EAC thing, but to me, it's still resiliency.
I think so.
Should we
is
throw
it
it on there?
premature because
Yeah.
it doesn't get funded till next year? So it won't really start? or-
It won't
Yeah.
start, yeah.
But-
But it's in the
Oh.
works.
I was sorry, I was thinking more on the umbrella. I don't know whether it needs to be on the website right now, but I definitely think it's under the umbrella where it should be at some point. I
If
guess.
we put it out, it won't get updated.
Okay, all right, so hold off on that one. All right. What's next?
But the only thing I would say to that, just based upon the users that we're not getting it. I mean, having more stuff there, more projects that could potentially be updated. Maybe, have people, hey, what's going on in the city? What's this thing I wrote about? And that's all. I mean, it's relatively easy to put the information up.
Could we put it under a proposed and that's it? It's not in planning or anything, it's just proposed?
Sure, we could put the
Yeah, do
status. on.
Would that,
Yeah, I mean, it won't be as exciting to the general public because it's not 100% clear yet whether it's moving forward.
right, but it's
So
there.
Yeah,
And
it
it's
could
a
be-
high profile
It could be a
building.
proposed, administration has proposed this, it's before the, council
Yeah.
funding.
I mean, if we look at the capital plan, the amount of money it is, people want to find out a little bit more about it, if things are moving forward, it might be a good place to go to look at it.
It's true, can't hurt.
Excuse me, Andy, is that funded under the Harbor Masters?
Yes.
It is
account?
not
Sorry.
underneath planning, yeah.
It's
only because-
enterprise, right?
They have
Grant
state federal grant.
Opportunities to finance this.
So it's not in the budget per
It's
se.
not in the budget.
It actually doesn't say it's,
Funded by user fees.
actually, it says right there, it's not one of the enterprise funds, that it's coming from the state federal grant.
Will pursue grants.
But again,
Yeah,
that's
I
an
don't think he
assumption
knows
right
though.
now.
Right.
We don't actually know.
So we would be clear
So-
in the write-up, just like we are with all the others. This is proposed funding,
To be
to be
determined, yeah, to be
determined or
determined.
something. So, and I will send it out, any of these that we update, we'll send it out to the group, just like we did last time, to make sure everyone's comfortable. Okay,
Okay,
And
so
frankly,
so an action item would be to identify which ones we want to put up.
That's
yeah,
what we're doing.
that's what we're doing
Oh,
here.
we're gonna go through the whole
Yeah, yeah, let's just
capital
go.
improvement plan?
No,
I
there's
think-
just like 6 or I don't know how many, but I pulled out just the ones that were related. to
Oh, okay.
resiliency.
All right, so I'll add that as proposed.
but
I wanna-
I'm
sorry,
sorry,
go
I
ahead.
just want to say, so we as a council are going through all of this right
Yeah.
now, right? And so, it could be very well that we'll either move this up a year or change the funding, get rid of it entirely.
Yeah,
Right.
so maybe we
That's
should
all.
wait until.
I would wait,
little
that
bit
like,
part.
waiting a
yeah.
month or two probably won't make any difference here, but will make a big difference. We'll have much greater clarity from the
Yeah,
council
okay.
when they get through the next couple weeks of the budget cycle. Yeah,
We're in
just so that
draft
Sarah and
plan.
others aren't spending time writing something up or trying to create a page for something that might be much easier to
falling
do
off,
a couple
yeah.
weeks from now, months. Rather than-
All right. What about this one?
We're just talking
So
Oh,
John
yeah,
Eric,
okay.
this one
Yeah.
is talking about the flooding downtown, the expansion of the sewer and water.
I don't view this as a resiliency
don't
project. To
either.
me, this is just basic infrastructure.
Yeah,
Um,
we would be doing this regardless.
yeah, it's not being driven by resiliency, I guess, as I look at it. But I don't know, you're simply the only engineering department.
No, you're exactly right.
Okay.
This is, the water and sewer, water lines are 150 years old. It's a basic upgrade.
All right, so don't include this one then.
But don't we need to expand the water and sewer lines for stormwater in the future? I mean, isn't there a double hit here that this will be an improvement for resiliency? Or are they just replacing them with no new engineering to handle more stormwater?
Well, there is a bigger culvert that's supposed to be put between Market Square and the
And that's
river,
a separate.
but that's separate from this. I think
Okay.
this is more about upgrading the water and sewer lines there, between private properties, right, running on the service. So I think
Oh,
that's
okay.
probably different than the stormwater you're thinking of, where the larger pipe is in part to address future flooding that would be worse by.
Okay,
sewer, right?
Okay,
It's really important. to
we have this
continually
one.
Make that distinction between storm drain system. and
Yeah,
water
that's
system.
this year.
Yeah, because water and sewer they can function regardless of the sea levels or anything. It's underground pipe, it's in the groundwater fluctuates. a lot of people are misled to think that you can't have pipes in the groundwater. They're all in the groundwater. Like, all of them. It's just the way life is. But I can see people asking the question, but for resiliency, water and sewer pipes are fine. Nobody's gonna upgrade those. Stormwater is the only thing for the
For the
capacity of
capacity,
intense storms,
right,
stuff like that.
right.
Okay.
Right.
This one we've got,
So next.
this one is the sidewalls.
Sarah, I do stand corrected a little bit.
Oh, this is.
Sewer pump stations,
Yeah,
they're, my comment just now is piping. But anything that's related to getting whacked by the rising seas, that's different.
okay, I think we've got that one.
So this is the sidewalls?
So this,
No,
this,
this is the
no,
water
this is not-
plant.
this is
not
just
the
the water plant.
water plant.
The only thing resilient with this, you guys, is, I mean, this is mostly about new carbon filters, PFAS removal, compliance with EPA. Those are self-imposed human
It's
mistakes.
more like a health thing than it
Yeah.
is a
Yeah,
resiliency, right?
exactly.
You can argue that there's gonna be more to remove because of climate change, but that's a reach.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, this is-
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do this one out.
This one's already there?
Yeah.
Already there?
Yep.
Is this the
So-
watershed protection?
Protection, this is resiliency.
We don't have a gem, like, this is more, we don't have one of these up. We don't have this up there.
I mean, I also, I don't have a strong preference, but I tend to view this more as just a general best land use practice type thing, as opposed to driven specifically by resiliency or climate change and things like that. But again, I'm not, you know, if you think
It
it's
is.
important.
Well,
It
algae
is,
blooms.
But at the same time, it's addressing resiliency issues as it's addressing watershed.
Yeah, again, I don't
Or it
reject it
should
being
be.
there, it's just not, it's clear to me that it's in the bucket, that's all.
Yeah.
But is it a
It's-
bucket of money rather than a specific targeted project at this
Well,
point?
Because I think that we eventually want to, we've talked about in the past, trying to apply for resiliency funding for elements of what might be in this watershed management
Right.
plan. Because, you know, heat and algae blooms and dust management practices associated with water supply stuff you could make the case that those are resiliency.
You can make a case that the water supply being large enough in capacity and of good enough quality water is the resiliency issue we're addressing
Yeah.
here, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, well,
But I
What would we
mean, you're
write
still
about?
right, it's a reach. Only
it's
because the
less
climate,
than-
the changing
yeah.
climate affects everything. So you could argue that changing climate affects everything.
right,
But for
right.
us, it affects our water supply more than it might affect other people's water supply, I feel like.
With the algae.
Drought
blooms,
And that it
heat
does.
And,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
everything.
yeah, and that it does because
The algae blooms, I mean.
our
that's the-
reservoirs are so shallow.
Right,
Yeah.
And this is, so
right.
my vote is to keep it in, as long as we know that it's like,
It's at the end of the spectrum, maybe.
it's at the end of the
Yeah.
spectrum.
Well, I think it's important to include it then, and when we write it up, it'll be clear that, this is,
It's sort of a placeholder though, until you have something specific you're doing with the money.
So we have a consultant, Wood and Kearns, working on this with us. And
Okay,
I'm still waiting for them to get to the punchline. We kind of know what the punchline is. It's to remove the pollutants, knocking on doors and telling people to stop polluting. It's not very sexy, but it's still important.
okay.
all right, well, we'll take a stab at a write-up, and then we'll make it clear what portions, what part are more specific to resiliency, and then you guys can see if you're comfortable with it.
John, I
change
have a
it.
question,
Yeah.
something you just said. You trying to get people not to pollute in what respect?
Like homeowners with fertilizer,
Fertilizer on a
Yeah.
failed septic
certification, that
systems.
sort of thing, not,
Yeah. Farms.
because we don't have very many sewer systems.
So
Septic.
they're all septic. So
Septic, rather.
there's probably a small handful of failed systems, not high on the chopping block to investigate right away. The low hanging fruit are the farms.
Yeah.
The cows,
Yeah.
the horses.
Yeah.
And working with them, getting grants to move their horses away from the stream, 100 feet away. That's a challenge and a half. A lot of private owned families have
West
farms.
Newbury, West Newbury.
Yeah,
You know, yeah.
so that's pretty much it.
we're trying to change some of the land use patterns, basically the usage of land right around the water supply, and that, requires coordination with another community,
And because
The dairy
temperatures,
farm up there, yeah.
right?
yeah, because temperatures getting warmer, this is more important. Or the removal of the pollutants are more important as the temperature rises and the water gets hotter.
We don't have the golf courses.
We're also looking at regulatory changes potentially, right?
Yeah,
In both in Newbury and Newburyport.
and for ourselves.
Yeah.
I think we do have to update ours.
Right.
This is.
Obviously.
Okay, and that's there, right?
And,
We have that.
Well.
Is
the
this
other
what-
side- is
yeah,
this
we
really
include
good?
There's,
it
there's some
in-
design work going on for this piece, right now?
Yeah, for the perimeter berm.
Yeah.
It's the last piece to keep the river out.
Mhm.
So
When
this-
is this gonna happen? When do we anticipate?
It's not
this?
funded for
It's
construction
not
yet,
funded
right?
for construction,
It's under design,
still in design.
and that's one of the updates I got in this in here.
Go ahead.
But it's shown as a 2025 as opposed to next year. So the assumption is it would be rolled in after design is finished in the next year. The following fiscal year will be funded for construction, at least right now. It's tracking for that.
When did you grab the CIP?
This week.
Okay, so that probably went to you guys, the
Yeah.
city council.
Yeah, I don't remember if it's in,
Because the fact that it's
24 or
2025,
25 in ours.
we were poking around with it, put it in 24 or 25. 25 is still fine. It's still under design, so it might end up being that the fiscal year 24, but those are details.
Oh, yeah, that's just a detail.
Those
Yeah,
are
yeah.
just details.
It could be bumped up faster in schedule, maybe.
That's
right?
all.
Yeah.
This is not in our story.
This definitely should be.
Yeah.
I am meaning to follow up with Wayne on this one because I lost continuity with Jamie when he left, but the idea was to move this facility away from the water's edge, not only because the facility would be in there, but because they can't even get the vehicles out, with this surrounded by water. So the idea is to kind of work with the refuge and try to move it up the street away from the water's edge as best we can. So this should, in my opinion, should definitely be Resiliency.
Mhm.
I think we started already.
I think we started, yeah, we just haven't, at the time we decided not to.
Yeah, and again, it's shown right now in the CFP, right, is tracking for 2024. I think we have to work out, I still need to follow up on details on that because I haven't had a whole lot of discussion with DPS. I was picking up basically the land access that we need so they could deal with the construction end of this. But hopefully it will track this 24 schedule.
Okay. Cool.
Is that the last one? That's the last one.
Alrighty, so we'll add
Water-
harbor master panels, solar panels, watershed public water supply protection. Make sure, there's an understanding what's resiliency and what's kind of normal, and the lift station. Cool, Steve, right, I told you we'd keep you busy. Figuring this out. Alrighty, and, you know what we need to do is get back to that Plum Island story map. So we haven't even followed up. I haven't followed up with you, Brett, on that, so. Nothing's happened.
There's a few quick things I could say about that. I mean, we talked about it a little bit last time. I mentioned, we're trying to look for content and what we're going to do. I mean, Sarah put together the first version based on a brochure that was, I can't remember who published it.
Conservation.
Me.
Oh, okay. And so we wanted to try to get some more images for it and pump it up a little bit. Last time I was going to look at some historical images to see if we could look at, identify anything in terms of sea level rise. And I did that this past month. And and this was using Google Earth to do this stuff because they have a ton of historical way to access past images, but you really can't, it would take a little bit of work. A lot of the older images are not really, don't have the resolution to compare with what we have like right now in 2022 or even going back 10 years. And you have to find out things like what the tide was and stuff like that. So you would have to
Yeah.
spend some time and make sure we wanted to do this.
I think it's a little bit problematic on Plum Island because there's different forces at play. And some of them are natural and others are man-made. And we can't necessarily predict either of them. So I wouldn't want to start making predictions.
No, this wasn't for predictions. It was just to show, what would happen if there were images that could capture it. For example, there's a really nice image, obviously, with the one on Reservation Road. If you compare the 2009 to 2022,
Yep.
it's like unbelievable.
Yeah, but that's not related to climate change.
No,
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
But I mean, the whole thing was about, I guess, I'm still searching for inspiration on this, but the thing was about Plum Island, and
Yeah.
different things that act on it.
right,
And the fact that even human interaction can make such a dramatic change. I mean, I
Mhm.
put it up here, but I mean, I'm sure you've all seen these different pictures, but you can do a comparison between the two on a story map, and it's pretty
It's
dramatic.
astounding. And then when you
What
look at
happens.
just what happened in the 2 weeks that it took
In
them,
our
or 1
years.
week that it took them to dredge
Yeah.
the Merrimack and what how that changed it.
But, in other words, it's just trying to beef up this thing and get people coming. So I'm looking for, something that we can do to go beyond the pictures that we have.
Well, I've got something that we've been working on that this is an older brochure that we did years ago. It's a beach access map, but it's also a dune protection fact sheet. So there's a lot of good information on here, basic stuff about protecting the dunes and dune grass and stuff like that. But then we also have a map that showed where we want people to access the beach so that they don't hurt the dunes. Obviously, this landscape has changed a lot over the years and is even more changed now. So we are trying to update this to more accurately reflect the pathways that we want people to use. But that would be useful
Yeah, that would be
thing to
good.
have up there as well.
Yeah, that would
So
be.
you're actively working on it?
Trying to get somebody who can take this map and update it for us. Basically, we need them to remove a couple pathways, add a new pathway, and create another little
I wonder
area.
if we could do an overlay over an existing Google Earth picture. Now, that's
Yeah,
fairly up to date.
There's that we could do that too. Yeah.
And if I knew, are there references there, the pathways to streets or something like that?
Yep, there are references to the streets here.
So that could, if we could overlay that on top of this, the streets aren't changing, aren't
Yeah.
moving, but the shoreline is.
Yeah, that'd be excellent.
That might be a nice.
That would be really helpful.
That makes sense.
All right, well, why don't we get together, Brian and Sarah, and
Okay.
whoever else in the next couple weeks, and we'll hopefully have something to show for the next meeting. We can go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I did publish the site, I changed some images, but I can send around the link.
Okay.
I didn't put it up on the city site. but
Okay, that's what I was
It's
wondering.
it's just a
Just-
link, nobody's gonna
It's hidden.
type it in by mistake.
All right, well, that's what to do then, Brett. I'm sorry that I haven't followed up. All right, so Kristen, just background on that. Have you seen, I can't remember if I forwarded you a link to a story map with, the city projects. And so we want to do something not in terms of content, but a story map for Plum Island. And so I think it will be important when we get that going to talk with you as well.
That's great. I was
Collaborate.
obviously listening, but I wasn't sure if there was a purpose specifically, but it sounds like there's still some different considerations. So-
Yeah, well, I guess the purpose is part of one of the things that we were trying to do as part of the Newburyport Resiliency Plan is to try to publish and get information out there. So we put together
Yeah.
2 story maps so far. As you heard from the analytics report. It's not rocking the boat here. I mean, it's not- And so we're considering another one on Plum Island that was based on a brochure.
To be an
I
educational.
think you need to hide some Easter eggs in it and then put a contest together.
Yeah.
To have people find them and give a prize and that'll be your count up.
Julia, was that brochure done with NWF? Was
Yeah,
that
Taj.
CCM resiliency grant?
Taj and Daryl and she.
Yeah, yeah.
We got a CZM post resiliency grant. We did
Yeah.
this. It was that whole big access.
And you have the sources for it, is that right?
What do you mean the sources?
Images.
No.
Content.
That's the problem that
Bummer.
we're encountering right now. Taj put this together when he was at NWF, someone who we worked with on this grant project, and he just gave us the PDF of it, and he had it printed as well. So we don't have access to like all of the bleeds and whatever the printers need and people need to revise
You
it.
Take the PDF. though.
Yeah, so I do have the
We
PDF.
can- We
Yeah,
can
but for Julia's
that, but
purpose.
to
And
redo the brochure.
we're trying to find somebody who can work with the PDF. I think we'll cobble something together. It won't be perfect, but
we are on a going forward basis to kind of get everything electronic in native files too, so that, people who work with another vendor, we can always go back to those and update those as easily as possible. But sometimes we have these older things.
Alrighty, the regs working group finally met.
Yes.
So we're closer than we ever have on the resiliency questionnaire, but not quite ready to show everyone. But next month, I'm fairly confident that we'll have something to share. I'll share it over email, and then maybe we can go through it. And then we still need to catch up with you, John Eric, for meeting with you in terms of talking about the maps. But so I don't think we need to get into it here, because we haven't made any decisions.
Yeah.
So I'll table that. But I feel like we've started moving again, which is good. Were you gonna say something? No. Okay. The grant is in.
Yay, good job, you guys. Really good job.
Just to do a quick recap, can you switch over and I think just really quick just so everyone. Remember, go ahead.
Want me to talk? Okay, so yeah, it was submitted on May 4th. We'd find out in August, so we're in wait and see mode for a little while.
We're counting on it.
Yeah, we're counting on it. Grant time frame will
Lots to
be September to June of 2025 if we get it. So the funding is 75% from the state, 25% match. The match is for our grant request was all in-kind labor. So either employees or volunteers. Yeah, this is kind of background, but the funds are reimbursed as people complete their deliverables, so nothing's paid up front.
How much was the grant for?
240? 200 and something, I don't know,
40.
including the match.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like 180 we're asking for, and the rest is match.
Yeah.
So this is what we put in it, 26 projects from nonprofits, schools, service organizations, all having some tie into resiliency. So everything from concerts to murals to dune grass planting to, they're all over the place. We can share the list with you if you're interested. And then 4 community forums for action, which are community conversations to teach people about what's in the resiliency plan and to engage them. So that includes people representing those 26 projects plus potentially others. And then leadership dialogues. This is what we've talked about here, keep with staff and city leaders, including members of the council and boards and commissions. So this includes both climate change and climate justice, and how to integrate resilience into all aspects of city operations. So that's the intent there. And then capstone project in 2025 would be a greater Newburyport Green Expo.
I think the state's gonna love that engagement and empowerment
I hope so.
feature. Yeah.
It overlaps a lot with their MVP 2.0, so we're hoping they'll love it. But
Fingers crossed. And I think we mentioned this before, but just the process of reaching out to all, Sarah did a ton of legwork, reaching out to all these nonprofits in the city. She looked at the IRS.
No, I mean, that
It was
alone is
every
having,
single one.
I actually gave the mayor that list again today, just the list for another thing that we were talking about. And this is just a really good summary of all the different community partners and what people do, what they focus on.
Yeah.
That was hugely helpful.
And to get 26, I mean, some of them are teachers, so that wasn't in that list, but 20 nonprofits, I would say, in the city want to work with us. And we're showing that we want to work with them. And so, we darn well better get this grant, but even if we, I'm not even gonna say it, just to have that relationship that sort of start, has started with these groups, I think. I think it can be helpful. So,
I really like the idea too, of the extent we can engaging with the students at the schools, because I think that sets up sort of a, routine sort of expectation, in the culture of the society locally. Is, that's something
so
we all
part of
do.
the funding is for these, what the state calls community liaisons, which we would fund from EJ populations. I think some could be students as well. So, to help with Green Expo, to help with those dialogues and other stuff. So we'll try to get as broad.
And the liaisons will actually help manage, do all the work.
We hope, we've
Yeah.
tried to put a lot
Ideally.
of money in there for other
Right.
people to do the work.
but isn't that important too? I mean, just because we don't want to burn out, but also just that level of engagement and involvement and ownership when you are actually involved in a project.
Yeah, because once you get the money, someone's got to manage it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of work. You've done
That's
a
right.
ton of work on that,
Yeah.
That's right.
just for the grant application.
But we have funding in there for a part-time project manager to
Yeah.
help track the 26 projects. We
Yeah.
have funding in there for these community liaisons. We have funding in there for an event planner for the Green Expo. So we tried to actually
That's
fund
awesome.
the projects
Yeah.
and the staffing of them as well.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
that's how we get to $200,000.
Yeah, we bumped it up a little bit at the end.
I think we
Then,
needed
then we
to.
got
That was a
scared
good-
after talking
yeah.
to Julie and bumped it up even more.
We were like, wait a minute, who's doing all this work?
Yeah, I know, remember?
I think the final product, it
Yeah,
really
who's
makes
gonna run the green
sense, so hopefully.
Can you share the application?
We
to
can.
them?
Yeah,
Oh,
no reason why- yeah, it's on our shared drive, so I'll just
Yeah,
send
we'll send
it
it
to, yep.
Alrighty. Any other grants that we need to be aware of that anyone needs anything on, except for the flap? We'll get back to flap, but Julia, I can't think of anything.
Anything right now?
So we're waiting on the.
We're
FEMA.
still waiting on the FEMA hazard mitigation bio grant.
Did we hear about that?
We're supposed to hear spring, summer. So whatever that means, it's still, we're not like, past when we should have heard. And we just have zero information on when that will be.
And we still have 1 or 2 households that are.
There are 3 that were
Okay.
part of the application. One of them, I don't know how committed that homeowner would be to actually taking advantage of it, should it be, funded, but we'll see.
And there would be a need for a couple $100,000 from the city council for the
Yeah.
match, right?
Yeah, for the match.
We'll see.
Alrighty. Well, anything else on this? Are we good? Move on to city project updates, Donna.
So the lower Artichoke Dam is moving at a snail pace. The consultant is having a heck of a time trying to get the regulators into a meeting. They're swamped. They just are not making their calendar open. We have been working with 5 months to get a meeting with them.
Wow.
This is the state. you're talking
Which regulators?
So we're trying to do one problem is that I think the consultant's trying to do too much at once. Like, trying to get all the regulators in the same meeting. I think that's one problem.
DEP, different.
So DEP, Office of Dam Safety, and possibly 91. So you got all the DEP and Office of Dam Safety. DEP is just they're just overworked.
Yeah.
They're just overworked. So anyways, that's my update for that.
Alrighty.
The summary of that is we need those meetings to find out what they'll allow us to design. We can't even get
Can't even get that.
we can't even get that. So, and plus it's like an informal, and you know how it is when you meet with the informal,
Yeah.
have informal meetings with the COCOM.
Yeah.
They don't want to commit. It's hard for them to
Right.
commit.
Right.
So they don't want to open the door for a meeting because they don't want to commit
Yeah.
and say, who's the one that promised this
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Newburyport?
So you said that was okay? No, that's not okay.
Right,
Yeah.
because once the design happens, they might change their mind, because it's heavy duty. The request that we gave them to set up the meeting were raise the water level 6 feet, 10 feet. That's my theory of why
Yeah.
they don't want to meet, because it's so,
Well,
it's almost too complex right off the bat.
well, so, but I'd be surprised. I was gonna say, you should throw something at them that they can respond to like that, and then they'll want to meet because they'll want to tell you exactly what they think. But I mean, that's my
It's
experience.
just maybe some donuts and coffee and say, we just want to say hi. And not even give an agenda,
Maybe,
because
maybe
this
go
is,
the other way.
it's not working.
Split 'em
Spring
up.
cake, green cake.
I mean, you know,
It's DEP Appreciation Day. What is it?
because we're the only one with a reservoir on the coast, water supply on the coast with this impact. Where
Yeah.
Island was the other one. So the decision for this, they're scurrying, that they're not picking up the phone.
Well, if something happens though, they're gonna be.
Well, maybe divide them up and divide and conquer. Don't try to get them all at the same time.
That's what I said before I went on vacation, so
Yeah.
Unless it's a
Tomorrow, when I
very-
talk to the consultant tomorrow, I think we just have to absolutely change our.
Yeah,
Unless they
yeah,
think that
hit
they
one
need the
at a time.
consultants in the same room because the conversation's
Yeah,
gonna be iterative in some way, then I think they should just tackle them separately.
Yeah,
And that's,
Yeah,
because they all have
Yeah.
different agendas, and
Yeah,
nobody
they
wants
do.
to admit
right,
what is on their mind of what they will allow and not allow.
right.
and they
because
don't want to compromise for just because their colleague is in the room. Yeah,
Happens all the time.
yeah.
What's the other
So,
community in Rhode Island? Do you know? off the top of your head?
It was Newport,
Newport?
yeah. Yeah, Fuss and O'Neill did the protection for the reservoir. I think it was Fuss and O'Neill.
Joe, do you look like you have
Well, you
something
get
on your
that
mind.
meeting
I
together.
have a lot on my
Joe
mind.
always
I'm
has
not
a lot
sharing
There
it.
too, because it's gonna have Concom stuff. Concom approval and that one approval.
The short answer is yes.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. We just try to get to a minimum.
Yeah, yeah,
That part you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, what about the concrete pad, like just the emergency plan there, measures with the concrete pad and sandbags? Are we there yet
So-
for that?
So we finally got the chapter 91. Chapter 91 felt they had jurisdiction on that, and they claimed it was navigable, even with all those two dams. I don't know how boats can climb two dams.
There's no locks there, are there?
Now, there's no locks, it's not the Panama Canal. So, anyways, we lost the battle, they delayed us a year, we finally got that permit.
Yay.
Yeah. So now it's out to, we hired Time Bond to put together construction docks,
Uh-huh.
that's what's going on right now,
For the concrete pad.
just for the foundation, it's not just FYI,
It's packed.
it's stone, not a big deal.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at like, hopefully in a couple weeks, they'll put the package together.
Okay.
But again, consultants are busy. But that's where we're at. We want to get that out to bid before hurricane season, which we're already late again. Fourth year in a row.
Right, but you think it is gonna go out to bid?
We hired them, yep, we hired them and funded construction docks.
Awesome.
Yep.
Alrighty. Indian Hill, anything?
So Indian Hill, we met internally, and now that Wayne's on board, he's got it more active. The issue has been, the delay's been, AECom's been trying to find the location on the east side. And we're still going through, they created a matrix to look at for comparisons. And it's just, it's created its own monster. So I replied to we had to do a survey today. Did you see it? You did it?
No, I did that matrix, that was weird.
There's no.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
I looked at yours and I looked at mine, and they're so different, it's like not even funny.
It's
Yeah,
not the way to do it.
yeah, I think it was just a exercise.
They're trying to use numbers to quantify the importance of things, but the parameters were so vague that my understanding of those parameters are different than yours, because that's what you just said, your numbers are
Yes.
different.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. So
So this is to rank. the
for your meeting
options?
minutes, I think the best thing would be to just turn the mic off for you. I think we need to, yeah, I didn't even want, nobody wanted to get into east versus west. It was their own internal thing. So, yeah.
So there's still
We need to get back
internal
up, we need to get
discussions
back
on
on
the
track.
options.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
we-
exactly, internal
exactly.
discussions on the options for locating the intake, right?
Yeah, we need to get back on the west and just do what, stay in our lane, just do what we're supposed to do.
That has not been decided yet.
Okay.
All right.
I will help modify those meeting minutes.
Sure. Happy.
Water supply, Amesbury, so that is still at peer review for the hydraulic model. Made a phone call and before this meeting and he didn't get back. So that is that. The treatment plant firm. We have concepts coming. Woo-hoo. And that's another very slow moving design
You say the treatment plant,
for the berm of wastewater,
oh, the wastewater treatment, those sidewalls.
the sidewalls.
So is it gonna be a berm or sidewalks?
He told me it's gonna be earthen on most, but some areas can be concrete because of, it's gonna be so narrow.
So
Getting
you're not
up
getting
towards the
those,
You can't fit a big wide berm, earth berm. So
no, I was just thinking, you were talking before about having those interconnecting wall units and such as sidewalls.
yeah, like that would come down and go up, like to get across driveways and stuff.
Yeah, but, yeah. I wasn't thinking it was a berm, going in there, which is, no problem. as far as I'm concerned.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's mostly earthen berm until you can't, and if you have to put a concrete, we'll do that. That's it for me.
Thank you. Andy, anything on bulkhead or center waterfront that we need to know about?
I mean, George's been doing a lot of work with the federal government to keep the, federal funding in place here, given a lot of complications with the procurement process on that. So still tracking for the winter season. The park project, we extended the bid deadline. Actually, the bidder here is asking for another extension. We have the deadline that's been extended to next Thursday. I'm not seeing any opportunity really for us to extend any further than that, but we've been trying to balance a bunch of different factors. So we're trying to get good bids. We think we'll get a few this time that are more competitive, and we're working with John Eric, the Clover piece that comes from Market Square. We broke up a piece of that. So we're doing, at least initially, the piece underneath the park. It's not clear whether right now we'll be able to do the remainder of it to Market Square. We'll find that out once we get these bid numbers coming in. But right now we're tracking for, going from middle of this season into the early part of next spring to the construction of the park. Bulkheads over the winter season kind of wraps up early on. And we'll be balancing out with the events and everything that's up in the water. We have kind of a stakeholder group that we brought together to kind of coordinate things like that. Keep things kind of seamless during the season. So everything right now is on track, and with just more details about exact time frames, Jordan and I will speak to in the coming weeks.
We do think we're gonna get a couple bids this time.
Right now, we think we're going to get 3, possibly 4, based on outreach to the contractors. But again, there's a lot of factors in play with these things, and it's hard to predict every one of them. But we've done outreach, and based on what we've been hearing, we have about 3 at least that we're expecting, maybe 4 at a minimum.
That'd be good.
Andy, as a part of that park planning and bulkhead perhaps, are we looking at the installation of check valves to prevent storm surge from flooding the downtown and some of the adjoining neighborhoods?
I don't know if you
Storm
can
drain
speak to that,
system.
John Eric. There's nothing in the drainage culvert piece, for instance. It's the only new piece that we added in there that sort of ties into the drainage out there. Or it's not even a new outfall, it's just more capacity to that same outfall. There's nothing in like that I'm aware of. And John Eric, I don't know if you're able to speak to that at all, but nothing that has been right now.
Correct. That does not include those. There's too many areas that would enter the drainage system and flood
Yeah.
downtown. So at the point that we need to protect downtown, it's gonna be coming from other means of like raising bulkheads. And then raising the land internally. At some point, we might need those, but these are large structures.
Yeah, a few years ago, that in the early going, when we were talking about resilience, that was one of the issues, as well as flooding the industrial park through the Park
Right, Park
Riverside.
River. I mean, I can tell you for this pipe right here that we're talking about, because we're actually doing the part underneath the park, and we're not actually doing a section that's underneath the bulk of the boardwalk itself.
Yeah.
That piece, I think at some point down the road, there could be an address of that at that location. At least for that one point. It wouldn't, be one point, it wouldn't be the whole area like John Eric's mentioning, but that could be addressed at a later date. It's not like the work we're doing now would preclude that being done as needed at that point, because we're not actually touching the boardwalk right now.
And it wouldn't go as far down as that culvert below the harbor master's ship.
Right, it wouldn't be that far down, yeah.
Thank you. Julia, anything for?
Not really anything new on Reservation Terrace. I mean, we've got the sand out there, we're hoping that it lasts a little longer. Doesn't seem like-
Just reminded me, sorry. Because I'm not, I just had a thought. I walked out there last Friday.
Yeah.
And I tried to go out, not on reservation, like, right, it was more the the Northern Point parking lot and just trying to go down those boardwalks,
Oh, yeah, you can't.
which
go
are
down
now blocked
Closed
off.
off.
Okay,
And
so
that platform is
I
literally
do have an
They're
update.
gonna make some.
hanging
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
And
For a
so
while.
I was,
It is
so
hanging.
you have to walk the longer way, and I saw this guy coming back, and I was like, what's up with that? Because I didn't know about it, and he's like, he felt like it happened in 2 weeks. There was a storm out of the northeast, and then
Yeah,
something has
DCR
changed.
is doing some removal of some things that are hazardous out there, like the foundation and the end of that platform out there.
Uh-huh.
They're gonna take care of some of that. We also have some additional fencing and moving mats and things that are being placed out there along with the signage with the CPA, funding.
Yeah,
So there are some things that still haven't been rolled out there just yet, and some cleanup of those things, but we haven't clarified whether or not they're gonna have a continued public access at the end of that when they pull that,
So they
But was
are.
he right that that has
Well,
happened?
no,
very
it's actually,
quickly?
it might seem like that, but it's been steadily eroding
Okay.
backwards
That's
for
really-
years.
Okay.
And it is now, like you see, it's literally hanging in midair. So DCR, I just issued today an emergency certification for them to go out there probably on Monday or sometime early next week, as soon as they can get out there, to remove that shelter at the end of the boardwalk. It's sad because it's been there for so long. It's a good piece of, structure, but they're gonna take it off. Commission approved this last night at our public meeting, and bring the boardwalk back to the scarp of the dune and stop it there. And the question, like Andy was saying, is then, do you have public access still be able to go down from
Stairs or
there?
something?
Well, they wouldn't put stairs, but we've talked with DCR a little bit about kind of pushing them to get some sand and creating like a sand ramp that's a better slope, and then putting a mobi mat on top of that. That's what they're doing over in Salisbury on some sort of steeper access ways, and we'd love it if they would do that here.
Part of the
Yeah.
reason for that is because obviously if they don't have a designated path like that one, that's actually better for the whole length, that's actually defined, then people are traipsing through the
Right.
side pathways. through the dune.
Yeah,
They will
through
get
the
there.
dune. So this,
Especially
I
on a
mean,
hot day.
yeah, and there's a boardwalk. I mean, we need to continue to be able to use
Yeah.
that boardwalk. It's a good piece of equipment. So hopefully that will happen eventually, but right now it's an emergency situation because of public safety. So that's coming off. And they're gonna also at the same time try to remove as much as they can of the more hazardous materials that are down by that old foundation that's
Yeah.
exposed.
Yeah.
So they'll bring out the metal and a lot of that stuff that's from over there. They won't be able to remove all of the concrete.
That's a
But
good idea,
it's
because there were
as much as they
surfers in there.
Yeah, it's
They're
really dangerous.
surfing right next
In
to it.
there?
It's
In the
it's-
river,
can't
right there.
imagine. Well, that's crazy, like on
They
its own,
shouldn't be.
but-
I know,
Yeah.
we were out there, I was like, are those seals? I was like, oh my god, they're
No,
surfers.
they're
Wow.
people.
Yes.
But that just tells you the kind of surf that we get in the mouth of the river.
Yeah.
It's
In the
just-
mouth.
Yeah,
They're
Crazy.
surfing in the river.
Yeah, they are surfing in the.
So there's little indication then that the erosion there, where we're talking about the
Yeah.
platform, isn't getting worse because of the sand that's been pumped on reservation yards.
I don't think we've got any
No.
evidence of that just
Okay.
yet.
All
no.
right, that was my.
nope,
Okay.
that thing
good.
has been, we've been wanting to
knew
deal
there was
with that
something going on.
structure for a while.
It's been hanging off the ground for
has it?
years.
Yeah, it was.
Really?
it's been
Yeah, it has
closed
not
for
touched
at
the
least
ground.
a year.
I haven't
Yeah.
tried to walk out there in a while then.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
all right, that's good. Phew, thank you.
Is it still intact?
Is it still intact?
I wish I had a
Did
picture.
someone lift
Kind
it?
of is.
Did someone lift it and move it back?
That's what I was
Well,
wondering.
so,
Yeah.
no, so we
No.
talked about that, it's, we'd like to still have like a gazebo structure at the edge of the dune where people can hang out and then go down onto the beach. But we don't know when the erosion's gonna stop, so we don't know where to put that, like there's
far
moving
back is it?
targets, so
Put it
yeah,
on
so right
wheels.
now, we just have to kind of,
They'd have to bring out a bigger piece of equipment, I think, than they can
Oh,
put on
huge
that door
crane.
to bring it out. So,
Yeah.
and then it's like.
Yeah.
it's
Start
essentially
over,
vehicle
it's cheaper to
piles and,
start over.
they might try to
Yeah.
salvage some of the materials. and-
Yeah, the
I was
material.
just
that
curious,
goes-
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So, sorry, can I,
Yeah,
I'm going down a rat hole here, but, so Salisbury, of course, has been all over the front page of the paper.
Yeah.
So they're not getting structures down to the beach. They're getting moby mats down to the beach.
Yeah, and sand.
And DCR is or is not considering to put moby
Well,
mats in
so
for us.
We're asking them.
we're
same. We're
asking
It's
them,
awfully steep, though.
we're asking them to do that for us.
But of course, Salisbury's.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That's
it's really-
DCR land right there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just right there.
Well,
That whole
DCR
section.
actually owns everything from there down to the jetty,
To the
Right.
jetty.
Yeah.
all
Okay.
the beach and dune.
Just out.
Between Reservation Terrace and
Okay,
the
yeah,
water
so it's
and the
pretty
jetty
small area.
and the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all DCR. So we'd love it if they would do that. And I think they want to, but it's a matter of now they have to find out how to get more resources for the sand, to put the moby mat down. And it's just internal bureaucracy that needs to say yes to it.
They managed to do it in Salisbury pretty quick.
And
Yeah,
because they
they
got
did.
they
I
got
was
the
surprised.
governor and the
Yeah.
media out
Yeah.
there. It
Yeah.
was in the, yeah.
Mayor, governor's gonna
that's
be
why.
here next Friday.
Yeah. So
Oh,
the
Monday
fourth,
when
I
they're
think
out
we can.
For
put a little
the
pressure on
pride
them.
parade, or for the pride flag, she's gonna be here.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Friday, the 20, or the 2nd of June, whatever that
There's,
Friday is.
there's another NRBA meeting coming up, and we should probably bring that up again as well, because there's this,
Yeah.
you know,
Friday the 2nd.
slight perspective difference where it's, you know, the state has a full role with Salisbury's beach, right? But there's sort of a partial role here in Newburyport because the expectation is we're sort of partially managing or dealing with it. So what we're trying to basically say is, look, it's still state property, it's still public access, you know, can you provide some resources for
Yeah.
that piece of it, you know? It's, for the same, you know, same setup of basically.
I
what we
think it'll
mentioned,
eventually
same-
happen. It only makes sense that they do that there. It's just a question
There's
of
more
them
Newburyporter than
dedicating.
a Salisbury, come on. Let's
Great.
stop it.
Bring it down.
Which is the parade?
The parade is the 4th. I believe.
Red Sunday?
The flag goes up the Friday the
Oh, wait.
2nd, this Saturday the 3rd is the pride
Yeah.
parade.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same day as the senior car parade thing.
all right.
Two parades,
Oh.
same day, yeah,
Oh.
different
that's a
time.
bad idea.
Senior.
It's noon for the pride parade anyway, and 4 o'clock for the flag raising,
Alright.
or a heel of it.
I got nothing on the CSO monitoring unless anyone else does. I haven't heard anything.
No, I haven't.
So why don't we just transition back to you? Because we're already talking about Plum Island anyway. I know that, you know, the flap grant is in process. Has there been anything, you've been out, has there been anything on that since then, since we last
We
met?
submitted, there's requirements to get the grant started, so we submitted a worksheet.
Yeah.
Now I have to do a RFP for consultants, because we have to find a consultant. So
Yeah,
that's our
so
next
the
step.
worksheet was submitted and they replied that they received it, but it's not clear. I don't think we can begin work until
Correct,
they do something else. So anyway,
correct. That's exactly
we
right.
can start working on developing the scope together, but my understanding is it's not like the grant hasn't officially started yet.
Yeah,
And there was some language around like which fiscal year that was unclear to me, so.
Oh, like they don't want you to hire anybody until FY or
I
whatever.
think it's similar to that where you can't actually like start doing any work until they finish
Within
the
this fiscal
paperwork at their end. And
That
that's
Makes
what was.
sense.
unclear.
They
That's
won't pay
exactly-
for anything
that's exactly
within
right.
this fiscal year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll probably spend 3 months reviewing that worksheet. I mean, the federal government, but. So,
And the program is 3 or 4 years, right?
Oh, wow.
So this project is currently funded for FY 23 and to 24 federal, which is
Which is-
September 30th. October
Oh,
1. But it seems to leave some flexibility about like if that changes for up to 3 federal fiscal years.
correct. And
So,
we only
anyway,
need, it's only a study,
it's unclear
guys. It's
though.
only a study for the turnpike.
Timeline, yeah.
We should write it down. So we agreed we would do a page, a story map for that as well, or a story on.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's starting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would. be
Any
good.
idea what the amount would be for the study, just ballparking?
Yeah, the study is 3, was it 3?
Well, the grant award, I think, was 175,000.
175 for the grant. Well, I'm still on vacation mode. counselor.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So
Make
it's
sure
just a study, a conceptual study, working with the permitters and figure out what you can do and when and all that. But the grant itself, the more important component of it is that the feds, they want pedestrian access now. They want to improve pedestrian access and limit the backups with vehicular traffic at the gate to the refuge.
Yeah.
So they're coming up with ideas. They want this consultant to come up with ideas on how to improve that, you know, satellite parking, riding your bike, increasing bike lanes, stuff like that. So It's not just for resiliency, it's also, the flap itself is federal land access.
Right, it's all about access.
It's all about access.
Yep.
So it's not just for sea level rise,
Right.
it's for immediate access right now. That is the only thing that would push this to an actual project that might actually happen sooner than later. Because otherwise, if it's just sea level rise, you could put off raising it for decades.
Can I ask a crazy question? So say we created a better bike lane and pedestrian access out, once people get to the refuge, like where do they all go?
Especially when it's closed.
Beach one.
Yeah, exactly.
Beach one and Sandy Point. Oh, but there's more room now because you're on
That's a
the bike.
really long walk
We
from
definitely
downtown
have-
Newburyport to
Really
Sandy
long.
Point.
And cabs, we should bring them.
We're gonna have boats that go out, there'll be rowboats that-
Dirt road.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
It's terrible. I've done it before.
We're gonna have that same issue on Plum Island, I mean, we're gonna have this issue with the access now, which I think we have to do or solve in one way or another, but I think we're ultimately speaking, dealing with the exact same issue you raised. At the end of the day, the whole island in one way or another
Yeah.
still has all that same, dynamic or issue.
Right.
So
Don't forget.
the project started by the refuge, which is federally,
Right.
they contacted Newburyport and asked if we would entertain putting the grant together.
Okay.
So the mayor offered to do that. Nancy and I worked with Martha and Kristen. Well, you heard about it now, but so we worked on the application. And what I learned since then is that we're actually doing all the work.
Oh.
I thought it was more like helping out get the grant out and the feds were gonna run the project. So I'm the manager and you're looking at him. So I gotta find an engineer. Chris and I were kind of laughing about it. They sought help from us and now we're doing everything.
Shit. Put yourself forward.
So the scope of work.
It the way you want it, so there's benefit.
Well, there's benefit, and the scope is from a guy named Matt. Their intentions are great, but the pedestrian access that needs to happen. I can't imagine what a consultant would do to get better access, maybe a little bit wider
For bikes.
shoulders right now,
Yeah.
Shoulders, yeah.
Bikes.
and that could help. There's no doubt about it. But we'll see.
Still have to go to the bridge.
Is this gonna look at just
reading
strictly
Joe's
like
mind on
engineering
this.
or also, it's also looking at permitting?
It's
and
looking at
feasibility,
permitting, what you can do. It's also
Yeah.
Sunset Drive.
Yeah.
Oh,
So Sunset Drive is more of the choke point than the turnpike,
Yeah.
because they
There's
got
no
the
houses
houses.
there, yeah.
So if there's any raising to be had,
You need a local consultant who knows all this.
and that's what we gotta
Well, it's
find.
well more than 5,000 square feet potentially of alteration, depending on what's going on, right? And we might see
Mm.
some thresholds that are.
Depending on who you talk to, Kristen has experience, not to be on the spot, but if you can share the Arjula,
Oh, Argilla.
Argilla
or
Road.
I mean Arjula Road, so
Did they raise it?
Oh,
So when I worked for the town, I worked from the planning department's perspective on the Argilla Road. So the Argilla Road Resiliency Project is partnership between the town of Ipswich, which owns the road, and the trustees. So it's looking at the section of Argilla Road from just before the entrance to the castle, all the way to the beach gatehouse parking lot. Very low, floods regularly, not just king tides, but high tides. That project has received funding for 5 years from CZM resiliency grants. So it's very much a project that the state, CZM at least, is interested in as a pilot. And that's sort of been the trustees' perspective on it too, that there are these roads through causeways through marshes, across the coast. How do we improve them in a green way?
so 5 years of funding has just been studies over 5 years?
It's sort of started with feasibility and a lot of engineering, wetlands delineation, all of that. There's one pretty good sized stream that runs through a culvert under the road.
But it's not for
So
construction, this is only for the design work for phase?
it hasn't gotten through permitting yet.
Yeah,
The
okay.
last 3 years, to John Eric's point, and the question at hand is,
Can it
has
be
been
permitted?
funding consultants to try to figure out how to get the design permitted.
Hmm.
And
So,
I'll be more blunt. I mean, I am dying to have the environmental permitters, regulatory people acknowledge that sea level rise is going to kill the Great Marsh. So why can't we raise a road on the interim for a little bit of 5 feet on each side? I'm a civil engineer. I don't see that impact is all that bad. But talking to the conservation people in Kristen, the Great Marsh is one of those things where they're, am I right, Julia? They're putting they're drawing a line in the sand saying, you cannot touch the Great Marsh unless you really,
Because we're trying to save the Great Marsh.
and that's the oxymoron, is that the Great Marsh is gonna be gone. And if we can only just widen these roads a little bit to raise it,
Let's throw it all. Why don't we just get rid of all that?
Yeah, I know.
It's gonna be fine.
but do you see, do I have half a point? No, do I have half a point?
I do.
Yeah,
It's gonna grow, the Great Marsh.
I'm trying to let it grow. There's nowhere for it.
It's gonna grow right over.
it's gonna go up to
downtown
High Street.
Newburyport.
It's gonna go up to High Street.
Exactly.
We really would like it to
holistically.
grow right over Sunset Boulevard, but now we're gonna be raising Sunset Boulevard, so it won't be able to grow there.
Plum Island is a
So-
perfect conundrum in Seal and.
Yeah, it really is.
So
just a
And that's a
different
good point.
spin on it,
You're-
John
We're
Eric.
preventing the growth of the Great Marsh.
And if the
Which
Great
is
Marsh is
saving
gonna
the
be
mainland
underwater, that means we're
from
building a road to
impacts
nowhere.
that
because
we
the
don't
island will
want.
be underwater.
Right.
There's bigger reasons
And no
why.
protection from the.
Yeah.
Sarah has a question.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, we hear
Getting
so
there
much
is
from the
not-
Plum Island community that we're not doing anything. At least this is something, even if it stretches out and nothing gets done and it goes for 5 years, like is in Ipswich, it's something you can point to that says, hey, there's a study going on around the turnpike.
Yeah, you know, I was
So
gonna
there's
say.
a plus there, whether or not it ever happens or.
You're a cup half full person. I love it.
Well, it's also going to highlight the issue of permitting. Like
Right.
the permitting process is
It's
going
hard.
to have to change.
But here,
And
exactly.
so that is what, if anything, I think that is what this is going to highlight.
And
Is
that's.
this is what we
exactly.
need to do. We cannot do it right now because of the regulatory environment.
Permits
And
don't
that's gonna
take
happen.
these things, these issues into account at
Right,
all.
right. There's
No.
no provisions that deal adequately with them. I think MRBA, there's another MRBA meeting that's being set up for, I forget the date now.
That's what I
but
figured.
That to me seems like I'll defer to the mayor's office, but it might be worthwhile for the
Seriously,
mayor
so.
to, you know, with try to have that mentioned to the folks, because the folks,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
your
yeah,
point,
right.
there's all this discussion
Definitely.
out there, you know, nothing being done, but this makes more of a connection with that group and the whole discussion about, it's a continuation of the resiliency discussion, the MVP study, right?
Yep.
And there's actually active efforts being done to look into that issue, which highlights the fact that, yes, it is a realistic issue we're all gonna be dealing with, it reinforces that, and it's brings up the fact that there is something tracking for future discussion that's more specific to the turnpike, you know, I feel
Yeah.
like that's worth mentioning in that meeting.
Totally.
So I feel conflicted about this, and not from the environmental impact standpoint and Wetlands Protection Act, you know, that can all, those regulations can be worked around through or whatever. It's more like the philosophical question of why we would be raising the road, and in this case, it's to get to federal land. So this is a grant strictly to look at raising the road to get to the federal lands. Well, the federal lands are on a barrier beach that we have sea level rise problems with. And it's also the only access, not just the access to the refuge, it's the access for all the homeowners as well. And so by talking about this project, and getting to the federal lands, that's the intent of the grant. And that's the only reason why we're doing it right now.
Correct,
But it's going to be interpreted by everyone who lives out there as
Correct.
it's though it's for them.
which is.
And that opens up the door to all these other conversations about what our priorities are in terms of managing Plum Island in the future. And I'm not sure we're ready to make that kind of a statement yet to that group of people.
Encouraging development of the barrier beach.
Right.
Yeah,
And I second that, because my first reaction when all of a sudden it came on my desk is, if in my position as a city engineer in all of our resiliency work, I wouldn't have gone after this for the turnpike.
Right.
Because we already know what needs to happen on the turnpike, and it's just gonna be a matter of time and that type of thing. And this is one of those things where if we support this and we create a precedent, how much are you gonna commit? If you commit, then how much you can protect of the main island and
Mhm.
Well, what if it shows over time that it's impossible? That it's gone on for 5 years, that we've hired all these consultants, it's not getting anywhere. Then it just shows, the
The
barriers.
difficulty, the barriers of raising the road.
Well, the issue is, can you do it in a green way? I think if Ipswich, the town, had wanted to just throw a bunch of rock out there and build the road up, they don't have the abutting driveway issue that we do on Plum Island and other places. But I think that's like the rub is, from our perspective, is like,
How it's
we're
done.
trying to do it in, a 3-to-1 slope and, green shoulders. And they've designed these 5 high marsh culverts to allow the flow under the road. That's new. They're
Won't they have
adding.
the same requirement here? for Plum Island?
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
part of
it
the
would
study, to
Yeah.
look at the flow and salinity.
Yeah,
This is
Hard.
a showstopper. I mean, to get everyone to
Yeah.
agree,
yeah.
not gonna happen.
I mean, I think the opportunity, as you mentioned, I wasn't around when this grant was written and there was a decision to go for it. So I'm still learning about, okay, we have this money, like, how can we actually do a project? And it sounds like we have some flexibility and scope to like get us something that's helpful. But I also think it opens the door potentially to additional funding, right, through the refuge being a partner at the table. And that seems
important.
positive.
Yeah.
They've also said basically this is an access to federal funds and we, the two communities,
Right,
wouldn't
would not have
necessarily
had
have
otherwise.
access to, right? So they're not doing the grant, obviously, which is unfortunate, but at the same time, they're basically saying we're gonna provide partial access to some federal sources that, because we can't identify some other grant sources.
And they know eventually the whole island's gonna be that refuge, so.
In that.
All right, well, we are
Wait,
hitting.
can I ask a question around that? Sorry, not to keep this going, but I mean, has there been a, I mean, it can't be that hard to model, but if the turnpike's underwater, how much of the island's underwater?
The
Done
MVP
that,
study
yeah.
that was
It's like a-
done by the town of Newbury, at least did a conceptual analysis, then basically said the same thing, there's gonna be, it's not just the turnpike, it'll be the island too, but there was an emphasis on the turnpike mainly because it's everybody's access out there, even though you
Yeah.
have to put aside for a second the discussion, well, what happens when you get there?
Yeah.
Because everybody's affected by it, it seems like to me, one of those things where there'll have to be some effort to deal with the Plum Island Turnpike, if nothing else, even though we're probably still gonna have that debate about the island itself and the restrictions around the island.
Yeah. As long as, so there will be other roads that will be submerged, even if we raise the turnpike.
Right.
So people will have their houses maybe elevated enough that they can be in them, but they won't be able to necessarily get to them unless we raise other roads. And so, that's why, what I mean about it, like opening up this big can of worms.
The houses are getting bigger.
Yes.
The houses are getting bigger, and the permitting process out there is actually, at least oddly, and we should talk more about this on the across the town line, but in the Newburyport side, it's actually oddly streamlined permitting on the island compared to the mainland for larger structures, which is interesting in the context of everything we talk about here. So we
And I
have
think
forces
we
going in
need
different directions.
to make a serious effort to, when the study is happening, to have a parallel effort to address those issues as well. And so we're not working at cross purpose areas, or we're not just opening ourselves up for almost intended consequences if we don't address it, because there will be
Yeah.
unintended consequences
Yeah.
of this.
It's the same message essentially that state, I wasn't here at the time, and you might know, Councilor Ringo, you might know, the discussion that was had years ago about the sewer system on the island. I mean, that was the exact discussion was, and, it was all about the exact same thing, are we reinforcing, development patterns that might be inconsistent with the,
Yes,
it wasn't.
That-
you're right.
that
Sewer
was
laws was
secondary.
mentioned in the executive.
That was
order, so-
secondary to the equity issue. If they're all paying taxes and everyone else in the city has access to good water and wastewater treatment, why can't those people on the island have access to those same things?
Right.
Yeah.
And that equity issue is a real issue to people who live there on a permanent basis, even those who are living there just in the summer.
Well, that'll be the
Is the
same
pattern that
thing.
used to be.
You probably, it'll probably be the same.
I think it would be.
Argument.
Well, I agree, it's fully the same thing. I guess the question I would bring to that is, does that necessarily mean, this goes back to just land use planning, but does it still make sense to allow further growth beyond providing for the folks that are already out there? That's the
No.
policy question that I think is,
You
We
know
need
the
to
answer to that,
address
and the answer is no, it's not rational. but people have invested their lives and, you know, the largest investment of their lives and properties on the island. And they don't see an easy way out, so it becomes very emotional
Right.
and difficult to deal with.
And there's more money being invested as we see right now.
Yeah.
in-
And we're permitting it and we're
Right,
right.
giving them.
So I'm
Their heads in
I'm
the
gonna
sand, so to
stop
speak.
us here, even though it's,
'Cause we're
we're
going
finally
to-
getting into the
Yeah.
real deal, but I know, because you have to head out. I'll follow up with you to see, you know, for the next meetings, just to, you know, see if you have anything that you'd like to
Yeah,
talk about
I,
specifically, and we'll
Yeah.
do the same. Thank you.
and I,
you so much.
yeah, I'm happy to stay in touch in between meetings if there are things like, sounds like the Plum Island story map is.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's multiple municipalities out there on Plum Island, but, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you. Yeah, appreciate it. We have, I should say, I know I glanced at your minutes from the last meeting and I just thought I should clarify that Newbury has a municipal vulnerability task force.
Okay.
And it is separate than sort of the emergency management committee. It's on a as needed to meet kind of basis, and it has not met pretty much since the MVP project,
Oh, really?
kind of stopped. But
What meeting? did
that's
you
one
go
of
to?
my,
Right? Didn't you go to a meeting yourself? Was that not?
That was an introduction meeting.
Jane
Oh,
and I
just-
just.
oh, yeah, it was just the
recently.
two of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have two people, but.
I thought it was an official meeting.
They haven't been published yet.
Yeah, we can correct it.
Sure, yeah, it's just called the Municipal Vulnerability Task Force.
Okay.
It's primarily staff, as I think John O'Connell did share, but one of my interests is in revitalizing that
Yeah.
committee and getting more, volunteer support. So it is somewhat distinguished from just staff that meet and talk about this stuff all the time. So
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
so much. Yeah, nice to
Thank
meet you.
you.
Yeah, we'll see you
See
soon.
you soon. All right. The only thing I heard murmurings of solar panels, lower artichoke, got really excited. We don't need to talk about it now, but I don't want to let that drop if that's even a remote possibility.
Oh, really? So it was just an email that I had gotten and I sent to John, Eric and Tom and somebody else. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So we can look into it. I mean, we can have someone come look at that. There's a specific company and if it really seems realistic.
Did you send that recently?
Yeah, you responded. It was probably.
Kate Mallory came up with the idea, like, remember she was
Yeah,
doing her thing?
Yeah, but this company just contacted us.
Oh, a company that specializes in
Yes.
solar panels on water.
Yes,
Perfect
I like
timing.
it.
Sorry, where was
Oh.
it?
on the
Floating on
lower
the water.
artichoke, on the water.
On the
Yeah.
water.
On
So
the
it
water.
cools
So-
the water
Yeah.
and it has the benefit of
Of
producing.
for producing.
Well,
Algae bloom.
Yes, it does.
Is it like
Get
just
solar
on
access.
water or is it floating?
It's floating.
Floating.
It's floating.
There's something about this. that we don't-
Cool.
Yeah. it is.
We have to
But it's
look
a
into
drinking
it.
Okay, so you want to? Okay.
I do, I'm not the only. Oh, I
And
think
it's
we should
something they
absolutely.
basically take
that's
infrastructure
very
and take the extra. grid
Yeah, I mean,
kind of thing.
we'd have to go to bid and do all that stuff and see if
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
other companies that are out there, but yeah, we can have them come and do an initial
Wouldn't it
survey,
be-
because you have to look at how much and how many panels and figure out the
Okay.
paybacks and all that stuff.
That'd be great.
wouldn't it- I mean, great access to the sun there,
Yeah, exactly.
but wouldn't it be an
No more
awful
fishing.
lot easier to just put it on the old landfill?
We don't own the
Oh, I
landfill,
know. I
and
know.
we went way down the
Actually,
road.
Or on the party bus.
Parties who put a lot of effort into it.
They put a lot of effort and money.
And money
that.
into it, and then the
And then-
landowner backed out.
And
Yeah.
then Tebow backed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
But-
all dead.
I think it's a
Right now
really
it's dead.
intriguing
You can
idea.
find them in
I
a
think
state
you
pen
just
somewhere.
help it close out with DP.
Probably.
Glad you did.
That's how we got.
It's
He
just a-
said he didn't want the money, so the money that was going to be made from the energy produced
Really?
would go into
Oh,
escrow. He didn't
Right.
want it to go
He's
into
part of
escrow.
it. He's part
Because
of it.
the
They gave it
Blue
more
Wave
exposure
has
because they
expenses.
thought
They
this
will
was
have their own
better.
expenses. So they wanted all that money to go into escrow fees. They have additional expenses or pay whatever they need to pay.
Yeah.
Because there's no
He didn't want
contractual
that.
Here's
So he
a piece
said-
of work.
I'm done. I'm walking away.
All right.
They spent how much money putting in the poles with National Grid? At $500,000.
And just the
$250,000?
design and permitting and everything too, I mean.
Yeah, well, they had to pay National Grid too, yeah, so
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
lost.
Well, yeah,
A lot of
that
money.
was sad.
It's unfortunate for us.
Yeah.
All right, well, can we safely say that the committee is in support of looking into it?
Okay,
Oh, yeah. All
so I
right.
can get back to him, and then
Seems like
who's
a
the
good
best
project.
person? Would that be you or Tom?
That's a tough call because we don't know what we're doing with the reservoirs. But whatever we put on them, we can always take them off and
Yeah. It's like a roof. If you have to redo your roof, they take them off. Right?
Have these
Well, we can just do
deployed
exploratory,
elsewhere in
right?
Massachusetts?
We will find out all those questions.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't-
this is really preliminary. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that
Super
we don't.
preliminary, yeah.
Just explore it.
Okay, so I'll get a meeting and then we'll just invite everybody from Resiliency. Okay.
All right, next meeting is next month, June 21st.
That's first day of summer.
Oh.
That's an awesome day then, 3 p.m.
We can celebrate that.
Yeah.
Next meeting, June 21st, 3 p.m.
Okay. And it's both virtual and hybrid. I mean, it's
I
hybrid.
believe it will be. We'll make sure.
We didn't
it's
get
all-
anybody.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Certainly.
All right,
So is that a motion to adjourn? Or we have
I think we're adjourned.
Okay.
She just commanded the agenda.